Ready?
Yep.
Three,
3, 2,
two.
1. Right there. I think I'll open it up because the guy over here that way.
Somewhere.
Every time I do the hand motion for the episode, I end up getting it wrong. He's over here right now to me. He is
Yeah.
JR Cabacungan. He is the Dark King at also not JR Comics 42 on Instagram, social media platforms coming later.
Yes,
And
sir.
I am the voice of reason 23 in a newly designed KRP Broadcasting Studios, the home of PS Comics. I love you. That's this podcast you're listening to. We
Sir.
appreciate it right there. I told some friends I would try to do this. PS Comics, I love you. And yeah, we're gonna be picking back up where we left off a few weeks ago, and that is getting into the Star Wars saga again. We're gonna go back. We're gonna jump into our time machine,
Yep.
and we're gonna jump back into the prequel era. We're gonna go back to where Anakin was still a Jedi Knight, where he was his best friend. He was still best friends with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he has taken on his own Padawan. He has not earned the rank of Jedi Master. He has, I don't think that's come yet, but he is a Jedi. He is a full-fledged Jedi Knight, and we are going to talk about the Clone Wars. JR has been salivating. He has feverishly written his memoirs, his thesis on on this and many other things in regards to the extended universe. I really do think you could legitimately, JR, get a doctorate
I don't know
in
about
Star
that.
Wars extended universe. But
There's a lot more not well known, but like a lot more people other than I that have led this Star Wars lifestyle, and I would love to have them on the show so we just like bouncing off each other, man. But yeah, my love for Star Wars is an all-time high,
yeah,
considering the of course you and I both, considering the fact that Mandalorian is such a great success and it's going to spawn
oh
off
my
so
gosh,
much
so
more
good.
things from the amazing Dave Filoni and of course Jon Favreau.
John
And
Favreau is
as
just
yes, dude, and how they got the blessing from the man himself, George, how he's in
yeah.
that too now. So mwah. But go ahead, my
Let's
friend.
Yeah, we'll get into this too. Let's talk about what Jon Favreau. We'll kind of tee this up. We're going to go back to Clone Wars, and we'll talk about this again when we get into the Mandalorian. We'll tell these stories. But if you had a chance to go and watch and get to know some of the actors behind um, some of the actors behind the uh, the characters on the Star Wars shows, most specifically recently season 2 of The Mandalorian. There is a character, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but the actress who plays her name is Mercedes. You might know her as Sasha Banks, the boss, the legit boss. And if you have a chance, go and check out her recent interview with the man, the myth, the legend, the Texas rattlesnake, the baddest man on the planet, the man whose beer I drink every single time we record this podcast, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Broken Skull Sessions is now available on the WWE Network. This is just a cheap plug. We are not sponsored or anything, but they did just talk with Sasha Banks at the conclusion of the Elimination Chamber on Sunday, and she does get into how she landed the role in The Mandalorian. So we'll get more in depth about that when we talk about The Mandalorian, but it was really, really cool that you have someone who is this badass, and I'll dare I say, sexy chick who is
Absolutely,
who
she's
is
gorgeous.
phenomenal. Mercedes is a great person. Sasha Banks is a great character, and the fact that she is just like, you want me to be in Star Wars? Yes. And she said that was so funny was someone slid into them DMs to get her to do it. They said that someone from the Disney Plus Instagram account DM'd her and said, would you be interested in doing something with Star Wars? And she's like, yeah, here's my people, call them. And the next thing she know, her phone's ringing. Hey, this is Jon Favreau. You want to come over and read for me? So that's, I mean, just like you
That's
said,
amazing.
you have some cool people. We'll get more into the story. And again, if you have a chance to go check out Sasha Banks' interview on the Broken Skull Sessions on WWE Network. But with that said, let's get into it. We're gonna go back in time. We're gonna go back to the Clone Wars. Now, JR, correct me if you need to. On the timeline, the Clone Wars begins. Well, first off, the Clone Wars is a battle between the I guess the
Republic. Yeah, it's basically the Republic.
The Republic versus the Separatist. And of course, it's led by Count Dooku.
Yep.
And General Grievous,
of course.
And obviously, we know now. Hindsight 2020. It's really spearheaded by Emperor Palpatine, which we know at the time is Senator Palpatine, and was the
he was one of
the chancellor of the Senate.
Yeah, he'll become chancellor of the Senate at the end in the third movie.
But the end of the second act, maybe the beginning of the third act of Revenge of the Sith. So setting the scene at the end of Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which a lot of people were like, such a lame name. Why don't they just call it the Clone Wars? We know we didn't get the Clone Wars in Episode 2. We saw the first battle where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme stumble upon the droid factory that they were building, the Separatist army. We meet Count Dooku really for the first time, and we find out really and truly what the Empire is doing. They're creating a droid army, which of course they would flip and would become the stormtroopers. But we know that the people, I cannot remember the name of the remote planet, the water planet.
I was gonna say Naboo, but it's not Naboo.
But anyways, we know in Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan finds this remote island where they're building a clone army based on the genetics, the gene of a bounty hunter known as Jango Fett, of course, the father of Boba. We do meet a young Boba. We meet the beginnings of the clone army, and then we see the beginnings of the Clone War at the end of Attack of the Clones, where they have an attack on another remote planet. There's a battle. We see Count Dooku get away after an amazing battle with Yoda. And then at the end of Episode 2, we see Anakin quietly, secretly marry Padme on the island of Naboo with I believe, just C-3PO and R2-D2 present.
Yep.
And we're led to believe that's all she wrote, folks, until we saw the beginning of Episode 3, which we see, bam, we're in the Clone Wars, bitch. And we see the huge battle scene. We led to the fall of Count Dooku, but somewhere in between, we find a great story led by Dave Filoni and spearheaded, started by George Lucas, who wanted to create more content. What was your first? I've read some stuff about why they created the Clone Wars. I read up a little bit about how Dave Filoni got the job, which we can talk about. But tell me, JR, because you're so obsessed with this show, tell us how you stumbled upon, because I know you're a Star Wars nerd. How did you stumble upon the Clone Wars first?
Well, the Clone Wars animated series, I actually remember, going back to it. It was 2003, no, not 2003. It was about, the first one came out. It was about...
Well, I think you have
2002, 2003. Yeah, so the original animation, actually, I got introduced to it was back in 2003, where it was during that time, the original animation, right? Like full on, 2D art, and we had in that time frame. That one was actually made from Gennady Tarkovsky, and that was back in 2002, 2003. I originally got noted to that one specifically.
And what Jared's talking about, there's two separate series.
Yeah. And so trying to introduce the original animation that happened in 2003, 2005, that was Lucas's kind of attempt to kind of give fans what happened between between Clone Wars as well Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, and basically
Camino was what I was thinking of.
Kamino. There you go.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. And so Gennady, basically Lucas is like, you know what, we're gonna talk to Gennady or Gennady. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering his name here, but Gennady, who is a massive freaking like legend in the game. He made Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, Dexter's Lab. He's currently working on the whole Transylvania series and trilogy, or like it's like
I
four
think
movies
it's
now.
3 or 4
Yeah,
episodes or movies now.
I know he's trying to make a fourth and fifth one right now, but he's a legend in the game. So absolutely, this is a guy who you just want to give stuff to, and he wants to make something amazing. And that was my original introduction of the animated series. And let me tell you, man, there was some great scenes in that movie, in that series. There was a depiction of who I thought Count Dooku was, especially in a specific depiction of who I was hoping General Grievous was going to be. And I was introduced to a lot of new characters there too. I was introduced to Asajj Ventress, who was at first, what we come to know, what I've come to know now, a Night Sister. Of course, the Night Sisters wasn't, they weren't canonized until the animation that was in 2008. And so the Gennady series is the one that was originally introduced to, and that was the one that I covet. That I still cover today, man. It's a fun story. It was definitely a very stylized, very very stylized art style. If anyone here has watched Samurai Jack, you know what you're getting into. And yeah, I love that series. My cousin, would always would tell me to come over, and we would watch that stuff, man. Yeah, the training scene between Count Dooku and Grievous was definitely one of my top favorite ones. Animation style fighting of all time. I always loved that. And that was my first introduction. Now my introduction into the animated movies, right? Into the not animated movie, but the animated series that is, of course, headed by Dave Filoni. I didn't really get into that because, let me see. I didn't get into that until it was way into its fourth season, right? The fifth season was about to
Yeah.
come out. And then I got into that because everyone was talking about Ahsoka Tano. I'm like, I was kind of out of the game of Star Wars for a little bit. I was going through high school. I was going through college, and I wasn't really in the game anymore. I'm like, well, who's Ahsoka Tano? And thankfully, the internet, it was much better. The internet was finally starting up at that time, and I got into it. Started to watch it. Was like, oh snap! I didn't know they came out with a animated movie, and they came out with an animated movie. Oh my gosh, it was interesting to say the least, man. It was interesting to say the least, but I got into that. And ever since the first couple episodes, man, of season one, watching it back on Cartoon Network again, finally coming back onto it, I got into it. I got hooked. And
And
I'm so glad to finish the series, man. It is definitely a great piece of art and literature. Not literature, but great piece of cinema. And it is definitely, for me, like regarded as possibly top five all time of like all animation type of things for me. But yeah, that's how I got into it. But go ahead. You got a question?
oh no, I was just saying, for those who don't know, there are two different series. There was one, like
Mm-hmm.
JR just mentioned, there was uh the Gennady Tartovsky version, was ran from 2003 to 2005. Um and it was, like JR said, George allowed um the creators to kind of run muck and almost kind of like what you did with the writers of the extended universe books got to do. George gave them the characters, he gave them the sandbox, and all he did was like, yeah, Lucasfilm Limited, go ahead, let those writers over there use our characters and
Yep.
stuff like that, and create these extended universe characters. And so, what brings us to Dave Filoni, and there's a great story if you watch the behind the scenes on Disney Plus. There's a great couple of behind the scenes of, starting with the Roundtable series that came out after season one, and that sits down with Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, Taika Waititi, Bryce Dallas Howard,
Yep.
and some of the other creators. And I really hope they inevitably do a Roundtable part two with season two, which they kind of did more like a
Yeah.
one-on-one. They would talk about each episode, they talked with the directors of those episodes, because I would love for them to sit down with Peyton Reed, and who did Ant-Man and the Wasp and Ant-Man, and is going to do Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and then sit down with Robert Rodriguez, who we know from the El Mariachi trilogy, and of course Spy Kids, and whatnot. So, and of course he's Quentin Tarantino's like freaking poker buddy. But I wish they would do more of that and get those, because so many great directors in season 2. But going back, going to the connection to Clone Wars, there's a great story that Dave Filoni talked about meeting George Lucas for the first time, and he fanboyed out, and he thought he bombed the interview.
Yeah.
So he walked out just like, I'm gonna take my ball and go home. I screwed this up. And before he could leave the property, they called him back in. He hadn't even met George yet.
Yeah.
So I think the producers said, this is the idea we're gonna do, blah 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 blah. And he just fanboyed out, and they're like, okay, thanks, And so before he left, someone said, hey Dave, come here for a second. And he called him into this room, and there's George Lucas, and George's like, no, you're perfect for the job. And so George Lucas personally offered Dave Filoni the job, and kind of let him do the same thing, kind of let him run the muck with the characters. But this was George's, kind of had his kept kind of close. This was his baby, kind of, because from what I've read about the Clone Wars, especially this rendition of the Clone Wars, the one that is more adopted as canon, which is the 08 to 15 and the 2020 run, is that this was something that in 2008 George wanted to do in live action, but couldn't afford it. So there was no Disney Plus, there was no Netflix, there was no Hulu, there was no Amazon Prime. It was, hey Disney, a 20th Century Fox, you want to bankroll a mini series on these fringe characters with Ewan McGregor and I can't think of his name now. The guy that plays Anakin Skywalker.
Oh yeah,
Hayden Christensen. And no one would do it. So he's like, screw it, we're going to animation. It's cheaper.
Yep.
And also, like you said, JR, it was a chance to attract kids into the Star Wars universe. And that's what brought us to Clone Wars. But what we didn't know was the rabid nerds would flock,
freak out, man,
to the Clone Wars. And that was the first time I heard about it. Was I started working at Best Buy in 2006, and I worked with a guy who I'd love to have on the podcast, and I know that he listens when he can. His name is Scott. What's up, Scott? And he, of course, named his kid after Star Trek, named his other kid after a character from Star Wars. And matter of fact, the joke was when he was interviewing Geek Squad agents for Star Wars, or when he was interviewing people to become Geek Squad agents, the last question in the interview that he asked, and it was, you got hired, whether he told me that you had to answer it correctly to get hired.
Wow.
And the question was, who shot first?
Oh God.
And anyone who answered other than Han was the only one who shot didn't get hired. That's the legend of our Best Buy store, the one in La Quinta. Shout out to what's up, La Quinta, Best Buy. And that was the first time I was restocking the shelves. I'm like, what's this Clone Wars? Never heard of this before. I mean, I knew what the Clone Wars was because I'd seen Attack of the Clones, but didn't know what the show was. And then I'm like, oh, it's animation. Me being a pretentious 20-year-old, I can't watch cartoons, even though I would buy the new Disney movie that came out every year. I'd heard of Ahsoka Tano. I just assumed that Ahsoka was
in the other ones.
Was the character who was shot at the end of during Order 66.
Oh yeah. Okay. Because they're both Twi'leks. Yeah.
Because what's the character, the species?
Twi'lek. The race.
I mean.
Yeah, the race.
So,
and
anyways,
sorry to cut you off, but yeah, funny enough, that character is also in. She makes recurring appearances in the Clone Wars as well. But go ahead.
Okay, so let me give you my 2 cents, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the Clone Wars. I did start watching it based on JR's recommendation and knowing that we were inevitably going to do this show. I'll be honest, I'm only 7 episodes into to season 1. I like it. It took me a little while. It was different. It took me out because the music was different. How they started the show, they used the blue lettering to kind of give you the theme of the show. There's a little bit like a jungle fever to the Star Wars theme. That's kind of cool. A little bit more drums and with dun dun. It's like, I don't know. It's like this remix version. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, very synth oriented.
Which, by the way, I'm gonna have to try to find that as a ringtone. It's gonna be your ringtone because I'm not liking that I changed a ringtone to the Joker laugh from The Dark Knight. Yeah, you have Heath Ledger's Joker laugh, and it's creeping me out. So, for those of you who know, JR is kind of a night guy, and I'll get texts from him at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'll go, "Bro, I'm asleep." But it's the Joker laugh from The Dark Knight, and it's a little. It's got to go. It's got to change. And then also your ringtone is the theme from Daredevil, the Netflix Daredevil. Nice, so, but it may have to be the Clone Wars theme song here pretty soon.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm gonna ask you then. Particularly, what was it? It was. Oh man. I'll say off screen because I want a particular. If it's gonna be Clone Wars, there's a particular soundtrack that I want, specifically in episode 130. And like just kind of notice you guys, told you guys, he's in episode 7. There's 133 episodes of Clone Wars, so he's gonna have to work up to it. It's fine. I'm
definitely gonna work up to it. And my takeaway so far, I like it. It's telling. It's kind of like what because I'll use for example. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. When they created that show, they had a kickoff in episode 1, introduced characters like Deathlock, Sky, and all the Fitzsimmons and blah blah. And then each episode was a different adventure, and it was kind of a continuous flow as we found towards the end of the season. That it was one gigantic storyline, but it was being led by. In today's adventure, and that's the way the Clone Wars really is every episode is a different adventure, but they're going towards a greater good, and that is trying to find Count Dooku, trying to find General Grievous, trying to find the people that are behind this inevitable Clone War. And I will say the gentleman over the shoulder of JR right there in animation form is, of course, the character we know as Anakin Skywalker. It is extremely odd to watch this show, seeing the scar that he has on his face, see the more grizzled vet that we see him become. He is this grizzled, bordering on dark Jedi Knight, this dark, brooding Jedi Knight, the long hair, the scraggly face, and again, the battle scar. And the first time that we saw Hayden Christensen that way was at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, where we know he made his 3-act transition into Darth Vader. So having seen that, having seen his Darth Vader conclusion, his Darth Vader saga come to a conclusion in Return of the Jedi, it's really odd for me to see this guy as not only is still a good guy, but he's a Jedi Master or a Jedi Knight training a Padawan who is so sweet. And innocent in the form of Ahsoka Tano, but oddly very, very similar to personality to Anakin. They're 2 peas in a pot. And so that's what I've taken away so far is it's really, really strange to see Anakin as still the good guy. Yes, he's dark and brooding, but at the same time, he is still kind of fun and loving, and he cares about Ahsoka and her training, but at the same time is like, well, let's go on an adventure. Like they're ready to break the rules, and there's Obi-Wan to go, oh, Anakin, when will you ever learn, kind of deal. So that's where I'm at. And of course, the great and powerful Yoda is doing great things of leading the Jedi kind of army through all of this and using his wisdom. So again, I don't have too much else to add to it. I'll just ask questions as I go along.
Chime in whenever you want to, bro. Yeah, absolutely.
But what was let's kind of go
Yeah.
from the beginning, what were to you what was like a key episode to um season one that kind of pushed this story to the kind of pushed the story along of this what inevitably was a 7 season Clone
Yeah.
War?
I mean, there was, for me, here's the thing for my occasion. Of course, like I said before, I didn't know that there was a continuing series of Clone Wars. Again, like I said, when I finally found out, it was around season 4, right? And around season 4, the one episode that really hooked me in was it was season, I think, like episode 8, and was deeply in the Umbasa war, right? The Umbasa
Yeah,
arc. And so I was getting into that. And like from that point on, I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me go back to the original, right? This was still on, of course, Cartoon Network. And Cartoon Network, we it was hard to get recurring episodes. They would show more so of the current season rather than going all the way back to season 1. So I would like, you know what? Screw it. I had a little bit of money. I went to my Best Buy, okay, and I got the first season, right? I'm like, let me get into it. And let me tell y'all straight up, it was hard going from watching season 4 to season 1. I'll tell you this why. And to give you guys just a little bit of backstory, right? In 2008, George Lucas, he's a perfectionist. We can agree
oh
on that.
yeah, oh yeah,
He's an absolute perfectionist. There is storytelling wise, he's a great storyteller. Director wise, there's some things to work on, but he's an absolute perfectionist. And so what he wanted to do, thankfully, was that he wanted to continue the story. Right, that's what he always like. That was his mantra, to continue the story of Star Wars. And so rather than resting on his laurels and just pumping out another trilogy to basically make money for selling all the merchandise and toys, he's like, you know what, I feel like the Clone Wars wasn't told through my eyes. I'm paraphrasing what he's gonna say, of course, but
yeah,
I feel like he felt like he gave Kennedy just full reign on whatever to do, because he was working on, of course, episode 3 at the time, and all the things that go with that. And so looking back onto it, he's like, you know what, I want to finish this story out. I want to truly tell my story, or what I view as my story. And that's when he hired Dave Filoni. That's when he made LucasArts Singapore back in 2003, 2004, right? And then the initiation of like, all right, let's make Clone Wars really be a thing. And he really went high tier by making a full-on movie, an animated movie, on less than $9 million budget. It was critically panned. It was horrendous. There were certain things about it. It was good if you're a Star Wars fan. If you're just a watcher of like cinema, right? A casual fan, it wasn't it though, right?
yeah.
Just for comparison's sake, Up, which came out the next year in 2009, had a budget of 145 million. So a budget of 9 million to a budget of 145 million. You see the
Yeah.
difference of animation. Like there was a lot of low poly, like if you were watching the movie, it felt like you were watching a PS1 game, PS2 game,
Yeah.
right? And but that wasn't what he wanted. Like he wanted a high bar of wanting perfection per se, right? And so from that point on, they went straight from the movie to the series. And series 1, we somewhat see that certain level of fidelity going to season 1. And let me tell you, going on to season 1 back in 2012, 2013, and seeing all this stuff, I'm like, oh, it's just kind of tough to kind of look at, right? Kind
Yeah.
of tough to look at. But looking back onto it, I found out that, some of the stormtroopers have some type of autonomy. They have thoughts, they have feelings, they're not these mindless soldiers that go do one thing over and over again. And that's made point and pivotal by Yoda, specifically in Ambush, where he
Yeah.
goes to Captain Rex, and he goes to Captain Rex and to Captain to Cody, and just talks to them like they're people. Rest. No, the best way to win this war is for you to survive the war. He's talking like Yoda talks to anybody, and that was one of the things that really hit like really kind of did it for me. Like, all right, cool. These guys aren't your normal clone troopers that can't hit the side of a barn door. You know, they would shoot you for like 40 minutes and hit absolutely nothing. No, Captain Rex, Cody, Fives, Echo, all these guys that were that were introduced in season one, great dudes. And it was made pivotal to the point too, because like you had one voice actor voice all of them, and they all had very distinctive like styles. They had very distinctive tones. They had very distinctive attitudes, and that's really kind of brought me into like, all right, cool. Let me get past season one at least. In season one, of course, we still Ahsoka, and at that time, granted again, 2014, I kind of I couldn't really stand kids at the time. I couldn't really stand kids, and when we first see her, I know for me, one second, my phone kind of blowing up right now. I'm trying to silence around. I know for me, when I first met Ahsoka, I wasn't really a big fan of hers. She was very, yeah, she was brash. She was like, felt like she knew everything. Oh, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Questionable, like a kid, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't until a couple pivotal episodes where it was an intentional design of hers. You're supposed to be against her, right? Unless you're older and you're a father, like my friend, like my buddy here, where you see her for as she is as a child,
Yeah.
right? And when I caught on that one of the key things I found out really fast too, specifically for me because I'm a writer, is that the viewer is actually Ahsoka. We're supposed to be seeing through her eyes because we know all the answers, we know what to do, and that we're hoping to somehow vicariously live through Ahsoka because we want to save Anakin, right? And I see this in her, and specifically in I think episode 7 or so. No, it was the bombing run. Let me look at my list real quick. It was not ambush, but it was storm over Ryloth. I forgot which episode that one specifically is, but Ahsoka, in her exuberance and wanting to prove herself, she takes a bunch of clones that's under her command and tries to fight against freaking fight off against Count Dooku and this huge Zani force in space. I forgot over Ryloth, and she loses tremendously. A majority of her fighters are decimated. She like is, and Anakin looks at her like, "Yo, these deaths are on you." And they let it sit for a very long time. I'm like, "Oh snap! This isn't your typical kids show type of thing. This is
No.
like, yo, the deaths of people, not clones. People are on you. These were people. These were the people that fought with you in oncoming wars. These are the people that were by your side, and you're just talking all this trash about how you can basically take this by yourself. No, it's not. And so the interpersonal play between her and Anakin was something that I felt was missing from Anakin and Han. You know,
Yeah.
not Han, Anakin and Ben and Obi-Wan. That's what
Yeah.
I thought was missing, because like we never had those instances, right? Even well, there we still had some instances of that in Clone Wars, but it was very well, we saw more of the interplay between Anakin and Ahsoka. So yeah, I watched the first season. It was decent at best. It was had some good stuff, some good showings. It just basically was there to show us a bunch of characters, and I'm fine with that because we saw Saji Ventress again. Who was the prince of Count Dooku. We saw Captain Rex, Cody, Fives. We saw all of Domino Squad. Big ups to Heavy. We saw Kit Fisto again. That was freaking awesome. Throughout the whole series again, we see Barris Offee, who's a Padawan, who is supposed to be what we hope, who we hope for Ahsoka to be. Yeah, Barris Offee was the Padawan. I forgot her name. Oh my gosh, I forgot the master that or the Jedi who she was under, but she was that very calm, collected, that very she's supposed to be a foil, not foil, but like she's supposed to be a comparison, a full on juxtaposition of Ahsoka at the time, and people rooted for her way more than they did Ahsoka at the time. And of course, one of my favorites, Hondo Okani. No, Onaka, not Okani. Hondo Onaka, who was a pirate, who was a pirate at the time, and they had some funny moments there. I'm pretty sure you'll see who Hondo is in the couple upcoming episodes, because there's a specific episode where it was Count Dooku, Count Dooku. Obi and Anakin, they were kind of kidnapped by Hondo. All three of them, kind of, and the interplay between that was just so hysterical. But overall, the very first episode, the very first season, was much of like, all right, cool. Here are the good guys, here are the bad guys, but there is some blurred lines between there, but like what Jedi and Sith really is, and that the clones are supposed to be have their own autonomy. They are built to be these people that are just fighting this war because one, they were created for it, yes, but two, they're their own people, right? Every clone, even though they're cloned from one person, have their own belief structure, not belief structure, but have their own, morality structure and have their own sense of duty, right?
Yeah.
And they're not supposed to be built by, they're not having this crazy, loyalty towards the clone army. It's supposed to be that they're in it together type of thing. So that was one of the reasons why I really kind of like, really, I'll give it a shot. And I went to season 2, and season 2 just broke the wheels off everything.
It kind of takes off.
Yeah. Yeah, the season 2 is definitely, I will say, because you told me about how season 1 was for Shield, and how season 2 really broke everything off too. I feel like the exact same way with Clone Wars, because season 2 you see a huge uptick of like just visual fidelity in general. One of the main reasons why, one second, I'll get my notes, is that they hired a guy named Joel Aaron, and he's the one behind all the visual effects. Behind visual effects and CGI related things, and the fidelity and just how clean everything looks. And not only that, but now the studio has a year under their belt of like how to do things properly and how to do things efficiently. And not only that, but George Lucas wasn't really hands-on in the first season. He was way more hands-on in the second season. And a lot of the stories coming out were with his like blessing and like, all right, this is how to do things. And that's when definitely Dave Filoni really took charge and really tried to understand the mind of George Lucas. And so that's the reason why Dave Filoni is the guy today. And you have any questions, bro, about anything?
No, not yet. I'm taking it all in.
Cool.
Because one of the things that
so
what I really like about so far, and again to tie in to talk about Dave Filoni, is just like you can really tell that you have a great storyteller in the form of Dave Filoni, who cares about his work, who cares about his craft, who isn't just in this to make money. He's in it to tell great stories.
Yep.
And he flushes out characters. He makes you care about these characters. And like I said, I've just gotten this just from 7 episodes. It's someone who cares about Star Wars, who cares about the extended universe, cares about the Skywalker saga as a whole, and wants to see this thing go on for many years. That's kind of like been my takeaway from it. Not afraid to create new characters, not afraid to introduce characters that were thought to be just fan fiction, so to speak.
Yeah.
And really not afraid to like I said, to create this character and really bet the farm, really bet the entire series on Ahsoka. And it was funny how she was really not, quote, introduced in the Clone Wars. She's just all of a sudden there.
Yeah. Man.
We pick up at the conclusion. Anakin's a married man, and he's gone through the trials. They do not, they're not. He is a Jedi Knight. We saw that at the beginning of episode 2. And then we know that just shortly thereafter, he thinks he's going to be granted the label of Jedi Master, and he does not, inevitably. But he does take on, much to the chagrin of the Council. Obi-Wan sheds Anakin as his Padawan, and Anakin takes on one. And I just thought it was kind of interesting. That was the one thing I was taking away from the first few episodes. I'm like, if I didn't already know who she was, I'd be like, who is this girl? Like, why is Anakin got some fangirl on his ship? This looks kind of wrong, because it is kind of hinted at that Ahsoka is extremely young. And we talked about that in one of our previous episodes. Leading
She's
up
14.
to she's 4. Yeah, I
14 weeks
think
here.
they said that. I thought I'd read somewhere that she is believed somewhere to be between 12 and 14, but yeah, she's
Yeah.
super young.
Yeah.
And so it's believed then by the time she gets to the Mandalorian, which takes place after the Return of the Jedi, she's got to be in her mid to
45. She's 45.
Well, see, I don't know. Like, okay, how far the clone between episodes? We talked about the timeline before. Between episodes 2 and 3, the Clone War took place about what 5 years?
Something similar to that. Yeah, it's because it's supposed to be what's it called, when we first see Luke again, right? In Mandalorian. Spoiler alert, guys. Luke's in Mandalorian season 2. He's about that's 10 years that's 10 years after Rise. I think that's like roughly around 10 years. And so I think he was like 29 or so. No, not 20. No, he was 21 during Rise. Oh, how did it go? I read the timeline somewhere, man. But he was supposedly he was 29, I think.
John Favreau and Dave Filoni, can you do me a favor and pull a Kevin Feige and write an official timeline for the Star Wars universe, because we need it for a future podcast. But nonetheless, she's a youngin. She gets to the Mandalorian. She's believed to be probably at least in her 30s, if not her early 40s. And a lot of people were hoping that she would show up in the sequel trilogy, which she would still be. By the time she gets to the sequel trilogy, she would be an older lady. I mean, she would probably be in her 60s or 70s at least. I mean, because
probably maybe older. Actually,
it's
older
believed that the events between Return of the Jedi and the beginning of The Force Awakens is somewhere in the ballpark of about anywhere from 15 to 30 years.
Yeah.
Between that, and we see that Leia, Luke, Han are all older. We know that Chewie's still around, but we don't know how Wookiees age. But yeah, so it'd be kind of interesting. Going back, so again, I wish this is where I kind of wish I would have seen more of the show. Where does you hinted a little bit about it? The two anime. Well, there's only one animated movie, right?
Yeah.
Where does it? Is it connect? Is it official canon? I know it's directed by.
It's actually canon. Yeah, it's
canon.
It's the I forgot. I watched it was weird for me. Back to it. I should have watched it again, the original movie. But yeah, it's supposed to take place before, because we don't see Ahsoka there. I think we don't see Ahsoka there. I might be wrong for that one. Again, I'm getting my timeline mixed up again. But we don't see it. For me, from my knowledge, we don't see Ahsoka until the actual series happens. And so this is happening. So the movie happened. The timeline is and it's within the 3 years of the Clone Wars, but it's supposed to be just an introduction to the series. And so that's when it happened. The animated movie that took place in 2008, because literally about I think a month or 2 months afterwards, we had the animated series of season 1. So that's when that happened. You had a note about Ahsoka that I wanted to talk about, but it swept over my mind again. But yeah.
Okay, I found a timeline. I found a timeline from. They don't put in.
They put why they don't put years. They have
They don't. Well, they don't put in. This is from Reddit. They do not put in where the Clone Wars movie takes place. But they do say it's episode 1, episode 2, Clone Wars, during which quote the Age of the Republic takes place between episodes 1, 2, and 3. We have between episodes 3 and A New Hope, we have Solo, and Rebels, which
you got to talk about that in a different podcast.
Yeah, Rebels is going to be completely. Rebels takes place between episode, almost like exactly halfway between the time period of 3 and 4, and leads
Mhm.
right up to New Hope and right up to Rogue One. Um, we do know that Obi-Wan will take place essentially during the events of Solo.
Yeah.
Cassian Andor will take place during
Before.
Rebels.
Yeah.
And then the Mandalorian takes place right after Return of the Jedi. Um, Star Wars Resistance takes place during the events of the Age of Resistance. And it also should be noted that the events of Galaxy's Edge takes place after the Last Jedi. So no word on the canonization of the Filoni full length feature movie. I can't find like an official time.
They
Uh,
had canonized it because George did okay it. That's the thing. That's one of the things that we have to worry about canon specifically because like if it's okayed and headed by George Lucas, because originally, like you said before, George Lucas, he I guess you could say he handpicked Dave Filoni to say, "Hey, you're the guy. You're gonna be the guy." And the original adding was that he wanted to make he wanted to make an animated movie, George Lucas, on a super low budget because because what they wanted to do was to kind of revolutionize how people see animated movies or animated cinema and how he can make that for the TV for silver screen. And that the original plan from that was that they wanted to make movie quality animated um animated film, condense that down into fit into TV series. And so that was one of the things that George wanted to do. And we see that throughout the whole season 2 and onward of the series. And so the movie that came out in 2008 is technically canon because it did give the imprints of it did have the imprints of George Lucas in there. So I don't know why they didn't put it on. It was just basically a certain battle in the war. It's that they never really hinted on when specifically, if I remember correctly. All I do know that is like literally about a month afterwards, or I think a week afterwards, the series came out, and so that's what happened there. But yeah, Ahsoka. To get on the point, I think it was Ahsoka that she was supposed to be our eyes as the viewer, right? It's supposed to be. It was geared towards a younger audience, and Ahsoka is supposed to be our eyes, how we view Star Wars world at that time. And so, yeah.
when does and I think we'll kind of talk about some of the characters a
Mhm.
little bit here. One thing I noticed, obviously, that's different. You know, a lot of the different characters. You have the basic. We've always been at the very beginning of Star Wars with the New Hope was we had I believe Ben Kenobi
Yep,
had the green lightsaber.
I think so.
Um, Luke had his father's Anakin's
Blue,
blue light. It was a yeah
blue,
blue
blue.
lightsaber. So Obi-Wan had the green, and of course the bad guys always had the red kyber crystals.
Yep.
It wasn't until the introduction of um, the prequel trilogies that we got to see new characters. We saw the purple lightsaber, obviously, with Mace Windu,
Samo Jack.
the only person in the Star Wars universe to have a purple lightsaber. Um, I know that I think there's technically one other person or something like that,
Yeah, someone asked for it recently. We'll talk about that eventually.
but there was, there's been a yellow, there's been I think orange,
Yep.
and stuff like that. But some of them have different characteristics. Obviously, we saw with with the different hilts. We have Count Dooku that has kind of the curled one. We have obviously Kylo Ren who has modified it to have the kind of the side saber.
Yep.
Um, we've seen, like I said, a lot of different ones. Obviously, we saw in miniature size with Yoda. Um, Ahsoka has, from what, for correct me if I'm wrong, has white uh kyber
That's
crystals.
yes, that's end of series. That's technically the end of series Ahsoka because when I think she had a green lightsaber when she was first when we first introduced her. It those her specific two lightsabers that she has now, if you people have seen the Mandalorian TV show, was there's a point of contention there because we have I don't want to spoil anything. But let's say I'll just say this. She does have two lightsabers at the end, right? We see her now in Mandalorian. How she get those white lightsabers? Honestly, it was kind of left up in the air because how do you say without spoiling the literal end of the series? She gives up one. And it's an poignant tale of her giving up one of those lightsabers because those dual lightsabers were a gift. I'll say that. I want to spoil it, but I can't because here's the Clone Wars. The final season of Clone Wars literally happened in 2020. Yes, right. So that's the final 12 episodes, right? They were finally given the okay green light for them after literally 5 years of no Clone Wars at all, no end to all these things, and Filoni was like, "All right, we'll do these arcs that he had. He had a bunch of arcs and a bunch of stories that were unwritten, that were kind of pre-planned, but they never got the chance to do because they got canceled, basically." And one of the arcs was that Ahsoka, I was gonna spoil it, but Ahsoka comes back.
No, just go. Yeah, we have to assume that people have seen these movies. I mean, we did the same thing with the movies. So,
yeah,
guys, so at this point, if you haven't seen any of the going from spoiler alert, if you have not seen, like me, and I don't care because this guy is been salivating to do the Clone Wars. If you have not seen the Clone Wars series and you really want to go in unspoiled, then pause this podcast and go binge them. They're available on Disney Plus. If not,
I would recommend basically come here after you're done with the series, which is gonna be a hard thing to do, but yeah, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so spoiler alert then. Spoiler alert. End of season 5. It was 2013. End of season 5. Ahsoka. One of the pivotal things I will say, because this is one of my points, is that Ahsoka was what's the word I'm looking for? She was not betrayed, but she was framed for blowing up a Jedi Academy type of thing, right?
Ruh-roh.
A bomb, basically, right? And she was one of the people to find that, right? At the end of season 5, she leaves the Jedi Council. She was absolved of everything, but she can't go back because of just the Jedi Council. Honestly, is seen in the worst light throughout the whole series. Like, there's a lack of empathy everywhere, and that's crazy because the Jedi Council is supposed to be, peacekeepers. They're supposed to be, these figures of hope. And they said, "All right, so okay, you're back," and that's it. After basically she was on trial and all these horrible things were going to be done to her. But Ahsoka leaves the academy. She leaves the council, and in 7, she comes back. She comes back. We see her again. We see a reintroduction of Ahsoka, older, a little bit older, 2 years or so, and my boy here, Anakin, gives her a gift of 2 lightsabers.
Got it.
Gives her both those lightsabers, right? And this is literally during episode 3. This is literally within timeline of episode 3. And it is amazing to freaking see, because when she came back, it was during the it was the Mandalorian War, right? Darth Maul was taking over Mandalore. Oh, dude, that's freaking crazy to think about. But Darth Maul was in charge of Mandalore, and Bo-Katan wanted to have her city back, basically. Her planet back. And Ahsoka went back to help out.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka had this amazing freaking battle. Honestly, probably one of the best animated fight scenes I've seen. Right? Just on full display against Darth Maul. And it's freaking amazing. And after that battle happened, they captured Darth Maul and they're onward to, I think, Coruscant, if I remember correctly. And that's when the Order came in. Order 66. And so
66.
She was literally there. They're canonizing that she was there when it happened. And with Captain Rex, it try to come to his senses, try to save her, and they have this crazy fight within the ship they're in, and the deaths of all. Oh my god, I was so sad to see the deaths of all the clone troopers that had to basically that couldn't fight off their rewiring were killed, and that she basically made all the graves for them, all the graves for the clones that are in her care, and and there she drops one of the lightsabers that she had, and that was supposed to be one of the lightsabers that Luke that Anakin gives her. That's supposed to signify that she's letting go of everything. That she's kind of not dumb, but like she's letting go of this because she can't. The Jedi at that time was something so different from what they originally was supposed to be pertaining to, and we made note of this during our prequel sequel podcast that like this isn't the Jedi, like they're very cold and vindictive to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
And but yeah, how she got her new two lightsabers, I don't know. They're because at the end, right, her lightsabers are blue, I think. I'm pretty
At
sure
the
they're
end of
blue.
at the end of Mandalorian, or
No. At the end of Clone Wars, the
Clone
one
Wars?
the last season that happened, her lightsabers are blue. While in Mandalorian, her lightsabers are white. So I know that Filoni kind of takes the group there kind of takes some continuity things, like they kind of mess up here and there, but it's fine because we still get Ahsoka. So how she got her two lightsabers, literally years after, don't know. So here we are.
It could also be now. Is it that she has a no kyber crystals, or does she just have? Is there a white kyber crystal?
It's
For
that's the
those of
thing.
you
I
who don't
don't
know, the
know.
kyber crystals are the crystals that give lightsabers not only their color but their kind of their personality and
Mhm.
their power. I mean, they
Yep.
each one has different ones. And when things reopen, one of the things that I'm willing to spend some money on.
Same.
I've never been to Galaxy's Edge. I haven't been to Disneyland in probably close to 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
They had, I think, they may have announced. I think the last time I went, they had announced Star Wars Land, and that was about it. Um, but they had not broken ground. They just had the land put aside. Um, but I've been wanting to go. I've seen all the videos on the what's the ride, the ride of the Resistance, Rise of the Resistance, a ride. I want to
Mhm.
go on the Smuggler's Run, which you get to pilot the Millennium Falcon. But I believe I can't remember what the name of the shop is, but you go and you create your own lightsaber, and you can swap out kyber crystals, and you can go to the shops there in Galaxy's Edge. I think you can only get them in Galaxy's Edge, I believe. You can
Yeah, I think
get
so.
different kyber crystals, and they have different stories. You can get a different one, and it's, oh, that's Darth Maul's. Oh, that's Count Dooku's. Oh, that's
Mhm.
Kylo's. That's Darth Vader's. That's blah blah blah. And they each have a different story. Of course, the big collector item is getting the black kyber crystal. But I, I don't. Is there a white kyber crystal?
Yeah, there should be like I know there's on I know the white kyber killer crystal is in different other media. Like I know you can get one in the more recent video game, the Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order, right? Which is another
Yeah.
great piece of Star Wars a multimedia that's finally out in a video game. It's a which I do enjoy. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna enjoy more once I get a freaking PS5, so I can finally play it in a better form. But yeah, I do know that those are out there. It's just more so I the only one that I've seen yet out in cinema that has these white kyber crystals is gonna be Ahsoka, and I feel like that's a proper one to display on her end thematically because one, for those who don't know, technically Ahsoka isn't a Jedi anymore. She's forgone that past. She wants to let go of that Jedi past because of what it represents to her into the time when she was in it. And the white kyber crystal is supposed to be purity, supposed to inform purity or just the color white in general, right? It shows
Yeah.
you representation of purity. It shows you representation of like of innocence and all that. And you have technically the first, not the first, but where Ahsoka now, she's technically a gray Jedi, right? A gray a gray Force user, where she's not necessarily her ideal form is that her ideology is still very much a Jedi, but she doesn't hold herself to those standards anymore because of just her because of the trauma that has been put on her from the past. Nor is she a Sith, not at all. She doesn't, nor does she have any Sith powers. Honestly, the best representation of her, specifically for those who've watched Mandalorian with Ahsoka in it, is that she's basically a Ronin, right? And we all know. Well, I know. I'm pretty sure people who do know what Ronins are is that they are samurais without a master, and that
No, by
yeah,
the way, to interrupt you, according to Wikipedia, um, uh, the Shoto lightsaber,
yeah,
Ahsoka Tano's Shoto lightsaber is a yellow green, is
yellow
what she's
green.
given in Clone Wars.
That's right.
There is a white kyber crystal,
Totally forgot. Yeah.
and Ahsoka Tano's white lightsabers uses a white kyber crystal.
Yes.
So there is a white kyber crystal. It was not, because there are
Yeah.
people that goes along to what you talked about, that the lightsaber is the tool of it, is a tool of the Jedi,
yeah.
that Ahsoka gave up at some point between Rebels and the Mandalorian. She gave up the Jedi Order. They gave up the Jedi way. A lot of people go like, well, if she's canon, then why did she show up in the battle, the Death Star? Why did she show up for the Battle of Endor? Why did she do this? Why did she do that? Because she was much like what Obi-Wan did for many years. Was he lied in wait as a hermit. We know, obviously, we're going to find out exactly what he did with the Obi-Wan series. But he was old man Ben Kenobi, sitting on Tatooine, dusting off freaking Jawas and sand people, but Tusken Raiders and stuff like that. But
no, it's funny you brought up Rebels. If y'all haven't noticed, man, I try to make this thing of like I'm being not negligent, but like I'm playing dumb per se when it comes to like information that's supposed to be like I didn't want. We all know that Ahsoka Tano gets her. We see her use her saber, she dual sabers in Rebels, and she fights off against Anakin in it.
Yeah,
I didn't want to say that though.
No, it's all right. This is why you're the expert. I'm just
Yeah.
kind of like filling in the gap where what I've learned about.
Yeah.
So we know that that's the end game. Obviously, much like it was in Revenge of the Sith, we wanted to see Obi-Wan fight Anakin. We do see that. Obviously, you've kind of hinted at here that we get to see what inevitably is probably the animated version of that, and that is we get to see the ultimate battle between Anakin and Ahsoka.
Maybe Rebels is here's the thing about Rebels, because now we're jumping. Rebels was the first iteration of when Disney bought Star Wars and they did not want to do Clone Wars anymore. 2013 happened, the acquisition of Star Wars, Lucasfilms on general, like $4 billion, right? And one of the reasons why they didn't want to continue Star Wars is because of the high cost that Clone Wars was because of the high cost it took for every episode, right? So I think every episode will, like, at that point in time, the season was about 2 million, I think, maybe more than that per episode. That was bonkers for its time, but that also showed how Heavily George Lucas really believed in it. Yeah, believed in it. And as when you're considered, possibly the greatest CG animated series of all time, that comes with it, right? And so Rebels, when they put out Rebels, they basically kind of semi-hired the same team that did Clone Wars, but like with like half the studio gone. And not only that, but like the money in it was so much smaller than one episode of Clone Wars. And so you'll see the visual fidelity just kind of drop again tremendously. They took more of a CG. They took more of like if you ever played Borderlands, series, the Borderlands video games, they took the cell shaded approach of CGI, and it works at certain occasions, but other points they didn't really. The series didn't really take off until we had Ahsoka Tano came back, until we had Captain Rex come back, until we had a lot of older characters come back. But that'll be for a different podcast.
When does
yes,
we know now looking back,
yeah,
we saw this guy in episode 1, in Phantom Menace. We know he peers his ugly red head into Solo. He appears in Solo, being the head of the crime syndicate that we see what's her name's character become the head of, when Daenerys Targaryen took out Vision. Well, I can't remember their Star Wars character, but I can remember their characters that they play in other mediums.
I get, yeah.
We see Darth Maul return, and we know now that George Lucas has said that in his original idea for the sequel trilogies, which would have been 7, 8, 9, his plan was not necessarily Palpatine being the big bad, but this guy being the big bad, being the guy who is laid in the shadows in wait. When did Darth Maul reappear? Did he reappear in the Clone Wars, or did he reappear in Rebels? Did he show up, and why? What was his point?
I forgot which season it was, man. But like it was, I think. So here's the thing about this, right? We have to go back on to one second. Yeah, let me look at my notes real quick. We have to go back on to Ventress, Asajj Ventress. Asajj Ventress, no, it's not her freaking name. I'm talking about. Yeah, Asajj Ventress, right? She is, of course, Asajj Ventress. It was the old apprentice of Count Dooku until she failed a certain plot. I forget correctly, and he basically wanted her to die, right? You failed me so many freaking times. The Order of Two, only 2 Siths ever, and so you're gonna basically die. And she, as a Sith, went back to her home planet. And the one thing I love about the Clone Wars is that they really dull the lines between what is actually good and evil, and what is a Sith, because the biggest representation of what Sith are is that they're the most human in the series. The Jedi are the ideal, while the Sith are the most human. And so we go back to Asajj when she goes back to Dathomir, where she's part of the clan where she's part of a clan of witches, right? And one of the people she basically wanted revenge, and one of the people she was sought to seek out for revenge was Savage. I forgot his last name. Savage. Let me find it real quick. But this character named Savage, right? And he is actually the brother of Darth Maul. And they were both inclined to try to fight, to basically, she sought after him because she wanted revenge on Count Dooku and kill him, basically. Some things happen. Y'all got to watch the show to find out. Some things happen. They separate ways, but after betraying each other, of course, because that's just how the Sith do. And one of the things that what Savage wanted to do was to find and go seek his brother. He wanted to basically be more powerful as a Sith. You want to see what his power is. They come to find out that Darth Maul has been living all this time, and he is found somewhere beneath the earth. I was trying to do this off my top of my head, man. I'm not doing it because I could freaking try to flex on my Star Wars episodes, but I didn't freaking do it. But yeah, he was basically found. He was found deep within the earth, and he had the dude was when you first freaking see him, dude, it's freaking crazy. He has metal legs, basically, right? But his legs at the time when we first see him though was spider legs. Yeah, and he was basically been driven crazy for the last like 4 or 5 years or something, right? For a long time, basically. And he was driven crazy, and he did nothing but lived off of fear and anger. He wanted revenge. So Darth Maul comes back, and his Savage takes him in. They become brothers again, and Darth Maul trains him, and they do a lot of crazy stuff in the series. A lot of crazy stuff. I mean, the Darth Maul is definitely a one-trick pony in the sense of like all he wants is just revenge. He is the epitome of what a Sith character is, right? But what comes from it is that he's a deeply flawed character. He's incredibly deeply flawed character because if everything wrong that goes, everything that happens to him, right? Everything bad that happens to Darth Maul is because of his own faults, easily because of his own faults. The spoiler alert again: the death of his brother, his own faults. The losing campaign of absolutely everything in his life is his own faults. Him losing Mandalore was his own fault, and just it's so poignant to see how a one-trick pony character you can kind of root for
Yeah.
and kind of hope you would like kind of hope like he if he only kind of just kind of twisted certain things about him, he'd be out of the situation. And it's crazy to see because we see him actually meet Obi-Wan a couple of times, especially after he is the king of Mandalore, the leader of Mandalore. And yeah, it gets kind of crazy, bro. And quote spoiler alert again, you see him kill possibly the only love interest that Obi-Wan Kenobi ever had in his life in front of him for a fight basically. And so Darth Maul comes in, he's freaking amazing as a character. He still lives throughout the whole series. We don't see what happens to him until afterwards in Rebels, which we will see, we'll come to that hill. We'll talk about that when we get to that hill. But yeah.
Now,
Yes.
obviously we mentioned too, to kind of introduce some of the different aspects of this story is because, like I said, it's filling in the gap between episodes 2 and 3. And the big storyline we said at the very end of episode 2 is we see Anakin and Padme get married. how involved is Padme in?
Oh my god, dude! Oh, dude, she is like, if it wasn't for Padme, none of the aligning, no one in the lying planets would have faith in the Republic. Period. Padme is seen so much more. We see so much more of her endurance as a character. We see so much growth of her as a character. Granted, we will always see her as on the good side, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. She's supposed to be seen as Lady Liberty. That is the imagery that we get from Padme because that's how she's supposed to be. That's her. She's not this naive young girl that we have seemed to believe in sadly in the last movie. She's not. And she's a very strong, very compelling, very driven character, which sadly is in a toxic relationship with a very young boy. Still minded, very young minded boy.
Obviously, yeah, because people don't realize Padme is
older,
technically older than
much older. And but we see her growth as a character throughout seasons 3 onward, man. Like she is very much people are gonna hate me gonna hate me saying this. I'm pretty sure you're gonna be saying this, but she's definitely seen as the AOC of the Republic. And you're not gonna like that, and people aren't gonna like that. But like, yo, when it comes down to it, she will roll up her sleeves and get down and dirty and do the work because that's how she's supposed to be pitted as. She's definitely supposed to be portrayed as. She's definitely the character where if she wasn't there, people wouldn't have faith in the Republic. Period. And we see that. Granted, we also see the dichotomy and the relationship between her and Anakin, and it isn't the whole like, oh, Anakin's googly eyed and loves Padme to the nth degree. No, dude, we see different versions of Anakin here, and ultimately, the dude's toxic when it comes to Padme. The dude's absolutely toxic. He's incredibly possessive, but when you see that version of Anakin throughout the entirety of the series, you don't really see him until like maybe like season 5 and a little bit of season 7. No, a little bit of season 6. I think, yeah, where you don't see his very possessive, very very Sith like possessive, possessive qualities until this point, because before you would laugh at them, right? At the series, you would laugh at them because no one knows they're married. No one
No,
knows they're married,
no one
right?
knows.
And so technically, Padme is kind of on the market to everybody else, and she has suitors. And one of those suitors is the guy that's supposed to, that runs the banks, all the banks. And Anakin does not like that one freaking bit, dude. Like Anakin, as much love I got for him for being a warrior and being an idealist, fundamentally, he's still very much a child. And I'm happy they showed those certain scenes of him being the freaking crap out of the guy, because he tried to kiss his wife in front of him when he
That's
didn't
messed
know.
up.
Dude, he beat the living hell out of him. It is horrendous. It was really a telling sign to Padme at the time too.
Yeah,
Like, yo, he has a deep seated anger problem, and
bro,
he's
you
very
got
possessive.
issues. Yeah,
Basically. And yeah, and because one, Anakin's still pretty young at that time too. All Anakin knew was war, fighting, some semi Jedi ways, and all. But like, he's in everything that he does up to that point. He got semi praise for it because he's seen as a war hero, right?
yeah.
So it's gonna add to his ego, basically. And so that was one thing. Yeah, the relationship between Padme and Anakin, as well as just her as a figure, right, is done pretty poignantly. I'm pretty sure there's some episodes, right, where they kind of cast her off. Yes, that's gonna happen. But the one particular episode was when she was uh she there was a hit on her life. There was a hit on her life because she was an upstart. She was gonna be the upstart, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody else. But yeah, just watch the episode. I think it starts in episode 2, season 2, and yeah, there was. The girl can take care of herself. That's all I'll say. The girl can definitely take care of herself, and I dislike now the portrayal of her, specifically in episode 3, because of just how nonchalant it looked. Granted, it's great that they retroactively made her into a stronger character, and I'm happy about that. But yeah, the version of we see in Padme within the Clone Wars series is a much better character, much more fleshed out character per se, right? Still, a kind of a one sided character, because you always see her as the good because she's supposed to be represented as the good, and how she really tries to appeal to Anakin's good natures. But yeah, you see that way more now in the series. One particular to kind of hit back at the series going from onwards from 2 to 7 or 5 at this point. I want to touch back on the Umbasa,
Yeah.
the Umbara arc, where it was the Inklings of Order 66, basically. In season 4, episodes 7 through 11, we have this 4-episode arc of. Actually, sorry, I apologize. I'm gonna just go back to this. Seasons 2 through 5, the change in quality was tremendous, and not only that, but you will see in a lot of those episodes, they try to take on every single genre, and it's amazing at that point. Uh, they try to make every genre work in their stories, and the mantra of like any story can be a Star Wars story is told throughout these seasons. In one episode, you'll literally have a heist episode. Another episode, you'll have Ahsoka Tano, a learning experience of having patience when she loses when one of her lightsaber gets snatched away from her. Another episode, you get you get an episode with nothing but freaking Jar Jar Binks. Yes, Jar Jar Binks is
Oh
in this.
no, no.
He's actually a good. He's actually seen
No,
as a pretty decent character. What?
I know I've heard that about him in the series.
Yeah, Jar Jar Binks and Samuel Jackson's character. I forgot. Oh my god, I forgot his name. You literally just said it. My mind's
Mace Windu.
Mace Windu. Yeah, we have the episode. Of course, doesn't really do anything, but it's just fun having those two characters around. And we have a particular episode, a particular arc where it is seen as it has the same stylings of Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Right. And so the Umbara arc starts with Captain Rex, as he leads clone army against the forces of Umbara with a bunch of Jedi Masters. One of them, of course, is going to be Anakin, and another one, but the ones we definitely want to that he's actually stationed with is one called Pong Krell. Now, the imagery and just cinematics involved is so freaking amazing, just animation wise, everything involved. And if y'all remember from what I said about the clones in season one, about their season one thing, is that they all have their own autonomy. They all have their own thoughts, and this is called into question during the Umbara arc, because one Captain Krell, oh no, Captain Krell, no, Jedi Master Pong Krell is very much that hard ass, don't give a damn about your life type of Jedi Master, and that's a huge stark comparison to a stark comparison to what Yoda was to them, because Pong Krell didn't view them as human; they just viewed them as clones. You have a sentient thing, go die for me type of thing, right? And you have Captain Rex and all these other clones, right? They're questioning that, like, why are we doing this war? And the more they find out about this war in general, makes them realize, like, yo, this guy is kind of crazy. Like, but then what do we do? Do we go against our basically our genetics? Do we go after do you disobey our orders? There's one particular clone there, I forgot his name. It's not Five, it's someone else, where he was just basically the on point, like, no, orders are orders, we got to do one thing, right? But he's been betrayed multiple times by Pong Krell. Like, what they come to find out is that the people they're going against, right, are actually other clones of them. They're fighting against their own people. And one of the things that was established throughout the whole series up to this point, and the reason why I freaking love this, is that there's a type of camaraderie within the clone army. There's a type of brotherhood within the clone army. If you fight with me, if you shed your blood with me, we're family at this point. I can count on you, you can count on me. There's this level of like one-ship, there was this type of union between the clones, and Captain Rex seeing all his people just die unnecessarily because of a dude who's on an ego trip is kind of getting to him. We come to find out that Pong Krell, a Jedi Master, actually has fallen. He's been using things for his own ends. He kills a bunch of these people, a bunch of clones, right after they try to take him in, and Captain Rex is kind of dealing with the humanity of this thing. Like, do I kill one of my officers? Do I kill one of my people that I'm supposed to fight with? And the clone who was betrayed multiple times, who said continue your orders, ends up shooting the guy and kills him. And this is going to hint towards like Order 66, because the majority of the times if we see certain clones, pivotal clones, die within the series, they always talk about the mission at the end. I'm so glad I never get a chance to do the mission. The mission, of course, is going to be Order 66.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see this this kind of a breakdown of like, all right, then, what is the Jedi Order? Are they peacekeepers, or are they just warmongers? Because at the end of this episode, you see or this arc, you see Captain Rex say like, all right, but then okay, after this war, what is next then? And one of his clones go, well, at least we could go home. I'm like, okay, but then after this, we just go to another freaking battle. What about us? What comes after this? And so you see a lot of clones questioning their own existence, and like, what is there to live for if we're just nothing but fighters to fight some ubiquitous war, some horrible war for somebody with evil intent. And so they're painting at this point the Jedi Council as like they're fallible. They're not the Jedi. I want to leave this in, but we'll just kind of get into it. The Jedi at this point, the Jedi Council at this point, right, or even continue onward, has been seen as this very callous, very non-responsive. Like, they're judicious, yes, but there's no emotion behind it. They're so far from their original teachings, and it's clear to see that there's been multiple times with other separate planets that are considered pacifist. They don't want to join the war because the war doesn't necessarily affect them, nor do they want to add to it, because both sides are warring parties. Right? It's been said multiple times. Yeah, okay, the Jedi could be seen as the good guy, but only because you win. Right? And the Sith are seen as the bad guy because they have lost so many freaking times. What is the truth here? And so the Jedi Council up to this point has been questioned by a numerous amount of people. One being Ahsoka Tano, the other ones, of course, and of course, Anakin questions it as well, but he can't get past the fact that no, I'm in it. These are the people that that has brought me in, and they're my family. Basically, I can't leave them. He's basically a slave to the Jedi Order at this point, and it's been called out multiple times by I forgot who it was in a certain episode, and he can't shake this feeling of like, no, we are in the right. We'll do what's right. But they get away from the fact of being personal. There is no
Yeah.
interpersonal relationships because they're in the middle of a war, a 3 year war that have once had these peacekeepers, these 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 figures that are supposed to be seen as the good, basically slaughter villages, basically just destroy just a lot of they did some pretty horrible mess up things, even towards people, even towards sympathizers towards Count Dooku and all of them. Kind of crazy. Like it's I just love the interplay between like, all right, the Jedi's aren't what you think they are. They're not the good guys necessarily. There's a graying of lines, and we see it multiple times too. Saji Ventress, and we see Savage, and we see Darth Maul. They too have their human moments as well. And the reason why they're this way is because of what they lost. Saji Ventress, she was a Padawan, but then she lost her. But then she lost her master, and her main thing was that she doesn't want to lose anyone anymore. Like, do we not see the comparisons with Anakin Skywalker? How easy it is to go from one side to the other. And even when she went to the dark side, she's lost again because she was easily discarded by Count Dooku. And when she went back to her family in with the witch sisters, no, I literally wrote it down here. I'm literally just flip flopping back and forth, and I apologize, my dude. But when she went back to her, when she went back to her original family in Dathomir, those were killed off too. They were killed off as well. And so you have a lot of character building and a lot of motives to why you are the way you are. And this culminates in one, Anakin Skywalker. Because one of the biggest complaints I've seen, and I too have had themselves, is that the reason why Anakin was so easily switched from one side to the other. We get that because of Clone Wars. I've said it before. One, Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's never really been a father figure in his life. He's been a brother, yes. Every now and then they would have their fun, they would do some things, but like when coupled with the war between the clones and between the separatists and all that stuff, he was very off. He was very, hands off, right? He has his own Padawan, do your thing. I got my own thing to do too, right? So they weren't there emotionally, right? And in that time, Anakin has lost so much of his ideals, of his who he was. Losing her was probably the biggest thing, and how it is handled, and how she was handled per se. Because we see Anakin, right? When you talked about it earlier, like it's kind of weird seeing this guy trying to be good when honestly the things that he was called out for by Yoda himself, by saying that, well, you can't have an attachment when you're a Jedi. Those things are not good for you. You can easily fall off. You hold on to fear. Well, one of the main reasons why we see Anakin the way he is because of his attachments, because of his bonds. He is willing to go above and beyond for his clone troopers under his care to hopefully save them. He goes above and beyond for Ahsoka. He goes above and beyond for when Obi-Wan has his fake death, right, in the series, he was so pissed off because of how it was handled. He wanted to he was so distraught when his friend died, only to find out that he was alive this whole time. There was no interplay there. There was no connection of like, oh, he basically Anakin just laid it out on Obi-Wan, like, dude, you what the hell? You couldn't tell me about this? I grieved your death.
Yeah.
And Obi felt bad, but he was like, we'll do with this later. I gotta do my thing. How do you say that to a friend that you basically raised for a very long time. He was just basically they were emotionally disconnected.
Yeah.
While Anakin, he holds on to those connections because it is what keeps him right. Right? It what keeps him right and what keeps him stable. His connections is what saves him at certain points,
Yeah.
right? And when the Jedi Order has continuously failed him over and over and over again, it we see then his change, because at that point what we see in Revenge of the Sith is that his relationship with Padme was always rocky. It was gonna be rocky going into it. His relationships with Jedi Council was horrible at best because instead of the peacekeepers that they once were supposed to be, they're now warmongers. His relationship with Obi-Wan is distant at best because they're barely seeing each other at that point too. And his main relationship to keep him evened out, Ahsoka, she left because of
Yeah.
all of the truth that she found out with the Jedi Order. How they're actually a fascist government as well. We see. I was supposed to talk about that during her arc in season 5, the last 4 episodes, basically how she was framed for blowing up a temple. Yeah, and she
Yeah,
was framed.
I had read about that. That was one of the things that she's had some difficult go of it, and that I remember reading like a passing note that she was
Yeah,
blamed for blowing up a Jedi temple. I think it was.
yeah, that's the thing, and then the Jedi's like, yeah, okay, that sounds right. But
How
then,
much?
but Anakin's like, what? No, he continually has faith in Ahsoka. And when it comes to find out, it wasn't her, but it was actually a Padawan, Barriss Offee, who did it, who was the same Padawan that we saw in the first season. And going onward, the reason why she did it and how she fell was because of the same thing. Like, yo, the Jedi Order isn't it? They're a warmongering fascist regime. They go to planets if you're wrong. If they view you as wrong, they'll kill you. We've seen it. We've seen them do it over the span of 5 seasons, and this is so far away from the Jedi's of old and the Jedi texts, that how can you not see it? You are worse than the Sith. And when they found that out, they basically welcomed Ahsoka back and said, "Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, you're back. You're back in our order." The only one to say "I'm sorry," truly, was Anakin. I apologize. I'm sorry. I should have believed in you. Only him. And yeah, it was just it was the interplay between those two is the reason I have faith in the oncoming uh not episodes, but the oncoming materials we'll have for Star Wars, man. Because yeah, at the heart of it's a person wanting to be loved, wanting to have a calling to something, right?
Yeah.
Anakin is honestly probably one of the most tragic characters I've ever seen after the Clone Wars, because we know his ending. We know who he's gonna be. And one of the reasons why I didn't want to talk about the end was because after Order 66, after Ahsoka let go of her lightsaber, Anakin comes back to that same spot as Darth Vader. He looks at the wreckage of the ship that was called their home for like 7 seasons now, and he picks up her lightsaber and keeps it for himself. It was a very poignant moment for me because like he can't let go of attachments. His lightsaber that he gave to her, he has to take it back because he can't let go of this stuff. And it's just sad to me, dude. And yeah, that was just how they portrayed Anakin. I see him in a much different light, and how they portrayed Ahsoka and how she is supposed to be the new generation at that time, the next generation of wanting to question everything, question your government, question your superiors, understand why you do certain things, even question yourself. At that point is a very poignant look of how Filoni and how Lucas put this stuff out. Granted, I will say it was kind of crazy how they did certain things because there was a lot of decapitations throughout the whole series. It was like a hard PG, like 15 or something like that, and like yeah, it was kind of wild, man. That was cool to see, but still, like dang, that's I know
I'm
they put that out on TV.
I'm
But
just looking through like all of the if everybody's been to StarWars.com, it's really cool. They break it down each of the mediums, and we use this as a reference when we've done the Star Wars episodes. Which, by the way, you can go back onto our YouTube channel, and I've got a whole playlist of the videos we've done for each of the Star Wars movies. And I've used this because I use it to cite locations, characters, weapons, vehicles, and stuff like that. And they do the database they've created, and I'm scrolling through just the stuff, the information. What's the list for this? The section is the data bank for the Clone Wars. And I'm scrolling and I'm scrolling and I'm scrolling and I'm scrolling. I mean, there is just there's so much stuff that, and this is just taking place between episodes 2 and episodes 3. There's just so much information, and I mean, they have it broken down, the different lightsabers, the different vehicles. It really is neat to take a look at. As we kind of wind down a little bit. Go ahead, sir.
I want to talk about this part because it's gonna include what happens in our Mandalorian podcast.
Go right ahead, sir.
All right. So for those who don't know about the Mandalorian War.
Oh, this is I side note from your side note is I want them so bad to do the Mandalorian War in live action.
Ain't gonna happen.
I know it's not, because they're not going to go back. They may flashback. I bet you they do some kind of flashbacks.
Yep.
I know they've hinted at already in both seasons 1 and season 2 of The Mandalorian. They talk about it. We've seen was it
Bo-Katan,
who was a major figure in the Mandalorian Jedi War, who's also a major part of both Clone Wars and Rebels, I believe.
Yeah.
I want them so bad to do that. I know they can't, and I know it probably wouldn't be a good idea because you can't go back and bring back some of the older characters and do them justice. But anyways, going back to what you were going to say.
Yeah, well, granted, I hope they kind of do, but like I know for the fact that because okay, so let me start this. The Mandalorian War is basically a culmination of seasons 2 through 7, right? Because we see sprinklings of these things of Mandalore, right? Mandalore at this time was actually a peacekeeping nation. They're a peaceful nation, right? Even though we hear Mandalorians, right? We think these badasses, right? And absolutely, they're badasses. But the leader of the time, the queen, I like to say, is Satine Kryze. I'm saying her whole name wrong again, but yeah, Satine. Satine is actually Bo-Katan's sister. Right, Satine.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Satine was the leader of all of Mandalore, and Mandalore at the time was the utopian society that people wanted. Right, Mandalore at the time was supposed to be what Coruscant wanted to be. Right, without the wars, they're basically a passive nation. They invested more in their people than their warcraft because Satine has come to know that throughout history, we've always been warring people. Because of it, we've never really been actual people with our own stuff. And throughout the whole series, we have this fringe group called the Night Watch try to undermine her and try to go back to the old ways of being a warring clan, right? And this Night Watch consists of Bo-Katan, consists of their leader, Pre Vizsla, who has Darkblade. Pre Vizsla is played by Jon Favreau. So
I forgot about that. Yeah, he is one of the voice actors. So
yeah, he is played by Jon Favreau. So that's freaking cool to see. So I'm hoping maybe we get some inkling of that one. But yeah, so basically they're just kind of undermine her to bring back the old ways. And so certain attacks happen throughout Mandalore, this once utopian society, and the Night Watch comes in, and they're the old warriors, right? They're the warriors of old. They're the ones that stick to, what we were originally supposed to be, right?
Yeah,
and they want to do that. It comes to the point where Obi-Wan Kenobi has to come to Mandalore and basically kind of help delegate, or try to help keep the peace there. He and Satine fall in love with each other. I want to say madly, but then you don't really see hints of that until possibly nearly the end. Well, we do see hints of that, but still, yeah. Obi-Wan Kenobi at this point is like the prototypical Jedi that people want to be and want to see in, right?
Yeah.
And so he definitely keeps his feelings to himself. So he, so throughout the whole seasons of season 2 through 7, Mandalore has had some forms of upheaval, some forms of not. Right? We've had occasions where Pre Vizsla and the Night Watch are seen as the guys, the good guys, the ones that should take over and really be, and really head up this whole thing, because we can't be seen as a weak nation. We can't be seen as a weak place, right? And it all comes to a friggin' head when Pre Vizsla teams up with Darth Maul to take over Mandalore, right?
Yeah.
And so they do. And then Darth Maul challenges Pre Vizsla to a battle, saying, "Nah, I'm gonna be leader, not you. I'm gonna be leader." Kills Pre Vizsla with the Dark Blade, and is seen as the leader of Mandalore. Obi-Wan Kenobi then comes back, tries to save Satine, whom he fell in love with. Darth Maul being the pretentious prick that he is, and can't move on from anything, sees his old enemy, the reason why he's cut in half and all that stuff, and kills Satine in front of him. Right?
Yeah.
And one of Satine's last words is basically saying that, I'll always love you, and they can't be together and stuff like that. Some more stuff happened. And then we get to this happens in Rebels as well. We see Bo-Katan, and she's gearing up to take back Mandalore from Darth Maul. And we see the culmination of this huge freaking battle in season 7, the last 4 episodes. Quite literally, if it was a movie, probably would be the best Star Wars movie of all time. The last 4 episodes. The amount of freaking money that Disney put into the last season is insane, right? Insane.
Yeah.
Like, there's only 12 episodes, yes. And so the market is just super freaking high. So the budget is super freaking high, and I freaking love that, dude. And so you have Ahsoka Tano, Anakin, the Republic trying to take back Mandalore with Bo-Katan, trying to take Mandalore back. And you have basically the culmination of that. The culmination of Ahsoka fighting Darth Maul in a beautiful picture, beautiful type of thing to do. And we see one of the things, I can't believe I'm actually saying it, but we see one of the things that Darth Maul truly wanted to do was that he wanted Ahsoka to come with her, because he found out, or he understood why Anakin Skywalker was gonna probably be the worst thing ever. He had visions of it. He's felt it in the Force, saying that, "Come with me. We have to kill our masters. You're gonna have to kill. I'm gonna have to kill Darth Sidious.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to kill, or we're both gonna have to kill Anakin." Oh, and also I forgot to remember at this time, during his rule during Darth Maul's rule of Mandalore, he gets visited by Darth Sidious. And Darth Sidious fucks him up, bro. Sidious kills Savage, right? They have this crazy lightsaber duel. I recommend it for anybody who's just watching it in Mandalore, and he burns the boy up, right? We come to this point to season 7, the end of it, and you see the culmination of of uh Darth Maul losing. He gets put in the ship, and supposedly Mandalore is saved now. The Republic has saved Mandalore. Well, guess what? Right after that, on the ship outwards to back to Coruscant, Order 66. And so Mandalore supposedly, in continuity, is controlled by now the Empire. And then we get into the Mandalorian, and we get to Bo-Katan, seeing Bo-Katan in the flesh, saying that she needs to go back to save Mandalore. There's a lot of other things involved too, guys. It's just that, again, you gotta watch it yourself. You gotta watch it, guys. It is the stories that they're telling, and how they're trying to weave in and out. Granted, of course, Bo-Katan, when I first saw her, I wasn't really a big fan, but just now, getting to know her and getting to understand her ideology and all that stuff. Granted, it sucks to see Satine go, but hey, hopefully, hopefully we'll see some form of Satine live action form, and I'm glad to see Bo-Katan back on screen once and for all with the same freaking voice actor. I will say, and I freaking love that, dude. I freaking love that.
And it almost didn't happen too. Was that for those of you who don't, it was oh my gosh, I get to think of her name.
Oh,
The
you talking the actress?
the actress who plays
Bo-Katan?
Bo-Katan. Of course, we know her from Battlestar Galactica. She came back and played the same character in The Mandalorian, and it actually almost didn't happen in Clone Wars, and almost didn't happen in Mandalorian. I know that she had kind of a falling out, so to speak, with Disney, where
of course
I think she tried out for. She was one of the originals, Katie Sackhoff.
Oh yeah.
That I think she was one of the original people that they wanted, or the fans wanted for Carol Danvers, and that she kind of allegedly burned some bridges, or I don't know, but that when they were going to write the character into The Mandalorian, there was only one person that Jon Favreau wanted, and that was Katie Sackhoff. And the same thing with Filoni, that they wanted Katie. So I thought she's great. I love her as an actress. I think she's phenomenal. I think she looks great. And people go like, "Oh, she's just old now." I'm like, brother, age ain't nothing but a number if you look that good. But
yeah. At the same time, sorry, cut in, Blake. At the same time, specifically with Star Wars, and if she's in a helmet for majority of the time, you could always put in a stunt double, man, easily to do all the hardcore
which
scenes. Like,
I know that she said that she wanted to do the her own stunts, but I guess we can get it out of the Mandalorian episode. Kind of putting a pretty little bow on the Clone Wars. And I know we kind of jumped around a little bit because we didn't early on want to spoil anything, and then JR just said fuck it and threw the rules out the window and said I'm gonna spoil some shit. It's a great series.
Hey, you okayed it, but
that's all right. I did. It's a great series, a great companion piece to go along with the Skywalker saga. It's a great break between the overly dramaticness of the main series of movies. It does add some comedy and some levity without completely deviating from canon. It's a fun side story. It's a lot of fun.
There's a Godzilla episode in there, man. Like,
I know. JR's. We had a text and phone conversation earlier today about this. We've been trying to record this episode for about 4 days now, and so every single day he's like, "Bro, you gotta check this out. You gotta check this out." And yeah, it's really, really great what they did with the writing and stuff like that. We are going to get into a little bit more into Rebels in another round, because I know JR, I'm looking at his notes, cut a lot out. There's actually, it's funny, I'm looking at the notes digitally on the new iPad here, and let me just take this off here.
It's not that much, honestly. It's
funny. It was like, it's funny, it got deleted, but so JR's got all these notes, and then there was a little footnote here for a third section that you could tell he just deleted it and forgot to put take the little footnote out. But we mentioned it in the last episode. We talked about Peter Jackson over here turning one book into 3 episodes, and then he came back today and he's like, well, I was going to combine the Mandalorian and Clone Wars into one thing because they kind of tie one another. I'm like, no, let's let it breathe. Let each one breathe. So we're going to do that. We're talking. So we want to talk about the main bullet points with the Clone Wars without getting without completely talking about the entire series and word for word. We want to talk about Obi-Wan. We want to talk about Anakin. We definitely wanted to talk about Ahsoka. We didn't get a chance to talk too much about General Grievous and Count Dooku. We could probably do a whole episode on each one of those.
Yeah, sadly though, the thing that one of the grievances I had with General Grievous is that they didn't really speak too much on his backstory. I mean, like, there was maybe one episode, like it was kind of weird because like there was so much of a focal point of him in the original animated series, right? Because
Yeah.
he was the badass guy, and then they did him horribly wrong in the in episode 3. And I was hoping they would do a similar fashion of what they took with the animated series with him in Clone series, right? Not really so much. Like he was there. There was maybe one or two occasions where he was given some type of backstory, but not so much, which it was a sad thing to see. And same thing with Count Dooku. Uh, he was there throughout the whole thing, yes, but it's like the more memorable things I think of him is more so of like off the top of my head without thinking too much is like the funny moments with him and with him and with him and the pirate. I can't think of his name. Like one second. I literally said his name too. Oh, it's on this one. I have like 6-7 pages of notes on me with Hondo Okana. Hondo Onaka. It's 10 o'clock, guys. It's almost 10 o'clock. My head's gone.
Let's put a bow on it right there. Let's
Yeah.
wrap it up. And we will come back, whether it be next week or in the next couple days, and we will record another episode. We might start pumping out a little bit more. It just depends on this guy's schedule and depending on how I feel. We've both had some stuff come up over the last couple of days that is going to prolong this. We don't want to inundate you guys with too much content, but at the same time, we owe it to you that we took a couple of weeks off and we want to throw some more stuff out there. And there is so much going on right now in pop culture that we don't want to get left out. We want to get our opinions out there, and at the same time, we want to do justice to our friends in the print side of comic books and talk about what's going on in print form. And there's a great series going on right now with Marvel. With the Old Republic series that's coming out right now, and I know this was a test run. One of the things that was not announced at the event back in December, the investors meeting, was there was two things. There's two things that weren't announced. Number one was the standalone Cara Dune episode show, which we know now is not going to happen.
Canceled.
It's canceled along with the actress. Gina Carano. We know that the Knights of the Republic, or sorry,
the
Rangers of the Republic, is going to take a different direction. And that so there was talk about them doing a Gina Carano spinoff, just her origin from Alderaan to the Mandalorian. And there was talk of doing a High Republic show, which would take you back centuries prior to even the Phantom Menace. I mean, we're talking about way back the beginning.
And I'll just tell you guys, I really shortened this list. I wanted to talk about the expanded universe way more. I wanted to talk about Jason Solo. I wanted to talk about the twins. I wanted to talk about freaking what happens in the High Republic. I wanted to talk about the 3 Jedi purges that happened in all of continuity. Technically, there's about 5 or 4. And the second one was, of course, the one that we all know, Order 66. The third one happened 100 years after the original trilogy happened. That was during there's so much content of Star Wars. It just baffles me when Kathleen Kennedy says there's nothing to go on. It baffles me. I'm like, really? So Jaina and Jason, nothing.
so will definitely we'll definitely get into an expanded universe and talk about what is it, the books,
and they were about to canonize too. They're in Clone Wars. They were going to canonize a lot of expanded universe. The Filoni has said multiple times, right? Timothy Zahn stuff, they already canonized Timothy Zahn's work in Rebels when they had General Thrawn. Yeah, when they had Commander Thrawn in there, and so we see this crazy little network of like, all right, cool. No, if Filoni's the guy because he's the right hand man of George Lucas, that means if he was gonna originally put out a lot of the things that was an expanding universe, is gonna come somewhat hopefully trickle into the upcoming things that was gonna happen in the universe, in the known legend universe, the certain
Yeah.
the current canon right now. So that's what I'm kind of hoping, man. We were supposed to be there's supposed to be this war with another race from a different galaxy. I forgot the name of it. It's top of my head. That was supposed to be in the Clone Wars. That was supposed to be the next big bad of the whole thing, but that didn't happen because Disney bought Star Wars in 2013. And a lot of this stuff was kind of like, no, we're gonna just rehash absolutely everything. And George is like, I'm not about that, man. And so here we are.
Well, there's so much we're gonna have to get to. We'll talk a little bit more about the expanded universe, probably with Rebels, and we'll definitely talk about it with the Mandalorian, because we do know that
Thrawn.
Admiral Thrawn is mentioned in the Mandalorian. It's a throwaway line, but it now makes Thrawn canon into the greater Star Wars mythos ecosystem. So we'll get into that. I do want to mention
interesting
too, we have 2 episodes left of the hit show WandaVision. So
2?
We gotta it's 2 episodes left.
I thought it was one more.
No,
I thought it was only to 8.
No, it's 8 and 9. We have 2. There's 9 episodes. So the penultimate episode is this Friday, episode 8. If episode 7 was any precursor, episode 8 is going to be I mean, the last 4 or 5 episodes have been phenomenal. They've been so good. The whole series has been great. But we got to come up with something. Maybe we'll do a live reaction. Maybe we'll jump on and do like a live YouTube stream or something. We'll come up with something. I want to do something after the final episode.
Sure.
And talk to you guys, because JR and I have both been like it was tough through December for me to hold back with Mandalorian, because there was a lot of times where I was like, JR hasn't seen it yet. Can't talk about it. And JR's finally caught up with WandaVision. So we're both like, but I know that some of the guys and gals that listen to our show aren't watching it. They're going to choose to binge it when all 9 episodes come out. I work with some people that are doing the same thing, that are like, they haven't watched any of WandaVision. Same thing with The Mandalorian. They didn't watch any of The Mandalorian until this show had come completely out. But we'll come up with something, or maybe we'll do an early episode and we'll record that Friday night. But this Friday, episode 8. Next Friday is episode number 9, the final episode of the WandaVision series. And then right after, we're talking a week later, it is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I have a feeling that when the events of WandaVision are over, all hell is going to break loose, both literally and figuratively. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to mic drop that one right there. So normally at the end of the show, we would do our flex pool. It is kind of late. Maybe we'll get another episode in this week, and we'll do a flex pool. We'll do a news and notes and a flex pool. It is, as we record this on a Tuesday. I'm going to try to edit it tomorrow, being a Wednesday, which is new comic book day. I know our calendars are all out of whack. So don't forget to download the show. If you're watching the YouTube channel, we appreciate it. Click down there, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, like us, comment us, let us know. You know what? The question I'm going to put out there on the YouTube side, and we'll put this out on social media too, is what was your favorite part of the Clone Wars? What did you look forward to if you've seen it? And then if you haven't seen it, what's been like the biggest like mic drop moment? What's been the big bombshell moment in the Star Wars universe, other than the obvious of Empire Strikes Back? What's been your favorite kind of mic drop moment in the Star Wars universe? Put it in the comments below. Again, don't forget to subscribe, like, and ring the bell for notifications. If you're watching on the YouTube channel and you need to find it in audio format, Google, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and like I said, Apple Podcast. Don't forget to also, you can find us on iHeartRadio, and it's kind of we got kind of stuff all kind of over the place.
Yeah, guys.
Comics
It's kind of funny too. I'm sorry. It's kind of funny too because like just said it's one little last thing.
Go
I intended to cut this down a lot. I think we started at what 7:30.
7:30, 7:45. Yeah.
So I said, I told him originally, like, bro, if it was my full notes, it'll probably be way over, like at least 3 hours, right? It's almost 3 hours.
It's almost 10, and we didn't, trust me. I looked at his script and I took notes from it. That's why I've been like, if you're watching the YouTube channel and it looks like I'm not paying attention, there's two things. There's two reasons. Number one, this was JR's baby. This was his show. This was all about him from the get go. I told him that I'm not up to par. I'm not worthy. This is his baby. He knows the Star Wars extended universe. He knows the animated universe better than I do. But I've been trying to first off trying to figure out how to take notes on this freaking thing. But I've been taking notes and going like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
JR's talking about that right now. Okay, where was that in the notes? Here. Where does he want to go with this? So usually
basically, guys. Yeah, basically, guys, he's doing a great job of being a co-host.
Yes.
So I
like this. Shut up and let him talk.
No, but yeah, guys, definitely. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure I missed out a lot of other content because again, this is about 12 years, right?
Oh yeah.
From 2008 to 2020, basically, right? And we have that huge gap in between because Disney didn't want to put out the last season, right? And the sixth season was on Netflix, and so they didn't want to do that. So it's just a lot of content shall cram into 3 hours. I'm pretty sure I got some names wrong. I'm pretty sure I got some events wrong too. But general, if anything, guys, I'm hoping that this, spark your interest of wanting to, take that first step and give Clone Wars a shot.
Absolutely. Don't be like me.
Yeah.
And wait and just go like, it's for kids. Don't be a snob.
It is definitely, if you guys are love Mandalorian, you will see a lot of beats in the sense of storytelling and writing script and having the focus on any story could be a Star Wars story from the Clone Wars and how we one thing I forgot to tell too is that one of the reasons why that what Kevin wanted to see was the political intrigue. All season 2 and 3 are just political intrigue. Actually season 3 and a little bit of season 4. All of that is all about the politics of what happens in Coruscant. And they have every story in the the Clone Wars is the reason. There's a big debate. There's a big debate to saying that the Clone Wars, the animated series, is the reason why Disney bought him, because of how elevated the fan base is and how elevated Star Wars is as a medium because of the Clone Wars. And it just sucks to see that it took them 7 years to finally realize that Clone Wars was a good thing for Disney. It was definitely a good thing. So Disney finally put money into it, and we have it now.
And I think I really think that had stuff like Disney Plus. I mean, I know that they put it on originally. Oh, crap. Trying to play cleanup over here. I know that originally they put it on Cartoon Network, and then it was on Disney XD, and that was the big push to try to promote Disney XD. But
there's also a lot of other things involved too. One, Kathleen Kennedy is still the head of the Lucasfilm side, and how she wanted to truly control everything. And there's that rumor out there that she wanted nothing to do with Lucas's touches on the film of the thing. And so the Clone Wars is definitely probably one of the first things with that high budget too, to basically be to be closing down, to be winding down. So here we go. Here we are.
Again, don't forget to like and subscribe on our different social media platforms. PS Comics I Love You on Facebook and Instagram. If you follow us there, we'll get you up to the speed. I did a little test run earlier on Facebook Live. Maybe something we might do in the near future is jump on Facebook Live and do some live videos. We're going to do some stuff on Instagram. PS Comics I Love You on Instagram. And also PS Comics I Love the letter U on Twitter. And our email address, I always forget what it is. And I think it's PS Comics I Love You podcast @gmail.com. And again, send us emails of what you think of the show, what's something you'd like to see us work on, and whatnot. So, yeah, guys, I appreciate everything, and be safe out there. I know that the pandemic is still very much going on. We're in the coronavirus still, or the
Coronaverse.
the coronavirus right now, and they've let some things loosen back up. I know that sports are going to loosen up a little bit. I know that I just got an email saying that they're going to allow in Arizona to do some fans in person for spring training for baseball.
Yeah.
I know that parts of California are going to allow in person baseball. I don't think the Lakers or the Clippers have allowed fans yet.
No. New York Knicks actually had their first game with some fans in Coliseum, in the stadium. That's a big step. Yeah.
So it's starting to come. We saw with the Super Bowl running at about 25% capacity. And that was pretty cool. So anyways, well, guys, we've got so much to get to over the next month or so, and we need to get in, put a bow on the Star Wars series. So again, Rebels next week, and then the Mandalorian seasons 1 and season 2. Definitely going to get into that and talk about what we think about that, where the show is going to go. Of course, we've got spinoffs with Ahsoka, the Rangers of the New Republic, and of course the Book of Boba Fett, all coming out next year. So, Book of Boba Fett's coming out next year. So,
yeah.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Yeah, that'll wrap it up for Clone Wars.
Yeah.
He is JR, the Dark King, also not JR Comics 42 on Instagram.
Yep.
At Voice of Reason 23 on all social media platforms, including Instagram. The Voice of Reason, Kevin Pillow. All right, guys, good night. And as always, peace.
All right, man. Thank you very much, bro.